Welcome to the very first episode of Let's Unravel. Hi, I'm Christina Esther, and Let's Unravel is more than a podcast show. It's actually been the mantra of my early 20s. And instead of saying, hi, I'm your host or I'm your guide, I want Let's Unravel to feel like this open conversation. There's open communication between me and you. And really what the heart of this show is unraveling your 20s. I'm currently 28, and I don't have it all figured out. In fact, I'm constantly unraveling things as I go. And the beautiful thing about unraveling is it's this ongoing journey. So just when you think you really understand what's going on, shockingly, I find out I don't actually know what's going on. But that's the beauty of Let's Unravel. There's a lot of things that I wish I had learned in my early 20s that I've actually learned now. There's a lot of things, whether it's from gaining confidence or just trusting myself. And that's what the beauty of this show is going to be. It's going to be acknowledging the wins we have in life, whether they're big or small, whether it's buying your first house or actually creating your first PowerPoint for a meeting presentation, which I've had great success with PowerPoint in the past. The point is, Let's Unravel is going to be a safe place to discuss the hard things in life. But like I said, we want to congratulate the wins no matter what size they are. Now, words are great, but actions are better. So how do I plan on doing all of this? My goal every week is to come to you with a topic that I've unraveled, things that I've found insight on, things that I've learned, basically kind of like I'm handing you the playbook of the things that I've found out at 28 that I wish I had known either at 22, 25, or so on. And like I said, the beauty of unraveling things is it's an ongoing process and it works both ways. So whenever we are talking about topics and there's revelations to be had, the beauty is we can always come back to them and find more perspective in them as well. And so for our very first episode, something that I really want to address is actually quite a bold statement. And it's something I've been telling a lot of my family and friends, and they've found this to be a jarring statement. And actually, this isn't my statement. This is actually someone that I heard online. So no further delay. The statement is, your 20s suck. The person that actually said this, she's a female entrepreneur. Her name is Cody Sanchez. So I had heard her first say this, I think about like less than a year ago. And I remember I was listening to a podcast and out of like nowhere, she just goes, your 20s suck. And the way she said it with such certainty, as if it was so matter of fact, like without a doubt, she's just like, your 20s suck. That's it. And so as soon as she says that, she elaborates. She goes into saying like, yes, you might be in your physical prime of your life. Yes, like you might be super energetic. And she lists all these positives of being in your 20s, which are true. So in a way, it's like physically and maybe, and I don't know. But the point is, yes, you might be in the prime or look the prime of your life. But the thing is, you're not in the prime of your life for career. In fact, a lot of times what happens is you have the jobs that you don't want to have in your early 20s because your 20s are actually just the foundation. And the thing is, we want results in our 20s that you actually don't get till your 30s, 40s, 50s, and so on. And especially when it's like you want a particular job title and when you work for these big corporate companies and there's all these tiers and there's all these people, and a lot of times it's like you have to wait in line before you have those opportunities. So it's almost like wanting to have those results in your 20s, but you actually don't get them till your 30s. And then all of a sudden you chase those goals only to find maybe it's not exactly what you thought. Now, I've been fortunate enough that I've worked in a variety of industries and my job resume is quite long, but I've gotten to have a lot of different experiences and I've gotten to work with a lot of different people. And what's been really unique is my previous job that I had the flashy title and I had the flashy salary and it was great, and experiencing it for the first time, it was exciting. There was nothing like it and nothing I'd experienced like it before. But the thing is, when you have the flashy titles and you have the flashy salary and all those different things, your perspective on them start to change. So where you were working for those things and you wanted those goals and you wanted those milestones, and all of a sudden you start to realize and you start to look for something deeper. You start to want purpose and you start to think, okay, does this give me purpose? Am I moving the needle forward in some way, somewhere? And over time, I had started to realize in the career that I was at that I wasn't moving the needle forward in the things that I was really passionate about. Actually, in fact, I started to feel quite stuck. And I never thought I would have felt that way having the title that I had, having the salary that I was making. And the thing is, that's where all of a sudden my perspective started to change. And I think the beautiful thing about perspective is as you get older, you start to realize perspective is about how you define certain words. So when someone would say, Christina, you're so successful, and all of a sudden I'm looking at it from the perspective that I've gained from being in this position. And I started to realize, I think my definition of success and your definition of success are actually quite different. And that's something I just want you to stop and to think about is the definition of success for one person can look quite different from another. And that was actually one of the most impactful life lessons I learned. And I had learned in my early-ish 20s, almost 25, is I had realized every person has their own dictionary of words, basically meaning they have their own definitions for what these words mean. And so when you try to play by someone else's definition of what these words mean, a lot of times you end up feeling a little lost. And that was something I had started to realize. When you start to play by someone else's dictionary of words and you start to play by what the world defines as success, sometimes you reach it and sometimes you don't. And sometimes you reach that success and you realize it wasn't the idea of what you thought success was. And so the beautiful thing about Let's Unravel is I've started to pull away these layers and I've started to see things for what they are. And to me, success looks like having purpose, having meaning, caring about what you're doing. And a lot of times success is also looking at the people that are around you. Do you have the meaningful relationships and all these different things? And there's nothing wrong if you define success by a dollar sign. That's great, as long as it's your definition of success. But the thing is, you can't hold someone to your standard of a definition of a word. You can only look at what their definition of success is. And that's something that I had started to realize is as I've talked to other people, and when I'd start to say things like, your 20s suck, and they would find this very jarring. But the funniest thing is, as I did more research into statements like that, I had started to find Cody Sanchez wasn't the only person that thought, your 20s suck or your 20s are hard. If you actually look up Mel Robbins, she talks about the exact same thing about your 20s being hard. They're your foundational years. It's your first decade of being an adult. You're gonna mess things up. You're gonna feel stuck. It's life. And then as you go through the rabbit hole, there's other people, there's more interviews. Dare I even say Meghan Markle said she would never want to relive her 20s. And I think that's something that's really telling about life. Yes, you might think there's a lot of great things that happen in your 20s. You could get married, you could buy a house, you could have the career, all those different things. That's wonderful, that's great. But if we actually stop and we objectively look at our 20s, I think we will find that they're not as glamorous as we thought they were. And that's okay. Because I think once you can acknowledge that something is going to be hard and it's not going to look or measure up to the expectations that we thought they were going to have, it gives us a lot of room for growth. It gives us the ability to dream big, shoot for the stars, and to go after those things. Your 20s actually get to be this opportunity where if you want to become a builder and you want to build something for yourself, they're great foundational years. You can take risks in your 20s that you can't take in other decades of your life. Because a lot of times in your 20s, it's either just yourself or maybe it's just you and a partner. Whereas by the time you get to your 30s, you have a partner, you have children, you have a house, you have all these responsibilities. And so the thing is, with this time in your life, it's really that thing, that silly phrase of the world is your oyster. And I think the thing is, we get stuck on other people's definition of what success looks like, and we try to chase those things. And by the time you realize money, it's funny. There's a funny trend, or not a funny, but a very realistic trend on TikTok about how trading in money, or trading in having money to have my Tuesdays look like this, and it's being in another country and different things like that. Don't get me wrong. You need to work. You need to be able to financially take care of yourself and all of those things, financial security, being able to have a life that you want and that you're proud of, and taking accountability for yourself. are very real things, and those very much need to happen. But I think it's also valuing what success and meaning and purpose looks like in your life is too. And that's something we'll dive deeper into other episodes as well. But the beautiful thing is, as you start to feel stuck in your 20s and you're wondering and you get onto that horrible wheel of comparison where this person's traveling all the time, this person has the career, this person got married, this person bought a house. I mean, I get it. I've seen it all. And the thing is, there's nothing I love more than when I saw for the first time on somewhere, whether it was like Twitter or X, and they were talking about Friends. And they said, do you know in season 1, a majority of the cast is 25. The baseline is 25. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, you're only in your first season of your 20s, like, or not your first season, but you're only in the first season of Friends at 25. So when you're someone like me, I'm 28, I'm only in season 3 of Friends. There's so many other good seasons. There's so many other great opportunities. So if you're starting to feel like you're behind, you haven't arrived, you haven't achieved, and all these different things, one, I just want to reassure you, you have time. But another thing I also really want to reassure you is if you can stop and gain some perspective for where you want to go, it's kind of like a GPS. You can't arrive somewhere if you don't know where you want to go. And so you have to stop, look up an address, or research where you're heading. And the beautiful thing too is you can always course correct. It's easier to course correct when you're moving than when you're just stuck. And so with season 1 of Friends, you look at someone like Rachel. She was working in a coffee shop. Well, actually, if you look at the pilot episode of Friends, Rachel, I think, has one of the most compelling introductions to the series where she's running away from actually getting married. So she's running away, runs to New York City, and she gives up all of her financial backing, all of the financial security that she was going to have. She gives it all up so that she can start a life that she actually wants to have. She doesn't have to marry the guy that her family thinks that she should marry. She's not going to just do nothing all day. Instead, she actually chooses a harder life for herself by going to live with Monica in New York City and picking up a waitressing job at a coffee shop. But the thing that's so interesting about her character development, if you notice, she's 25 in the show when it starts. And by the time season 10 rolls around and she's in her mid to late 30s, she's become something nobody thought would happen. She became fully independent. She built a career for herself. And at 25, I don't think she could have imagined what she'd be at 35. And I think that's the incredible thing that I want you to take away from this is it doesn't matter when you start. So if you haven't started yet, you got time. You can start now. If you started a year ago, that's great. You're progressing. You're moving forward. The thing is, don't let 10 years go by before you start. And so it's the same thing when you look at shows like How I Met Your Mother and you're thinking about love and when's it going to come? How's it going to arrive? And season 1 of How I Met Your Mother, Ted Mosby, he's 27 years old. He doesn't even meet the mother of his children, the love of his life, until season 10. So that's another great example where they don't even start really telling the story of him being in love until season 10. But that's another great example of where it's one of those things where it's like life is also to be enjoyed. And as much as we want to put all this pressure on ourselves that we have to get it right and we only have so many years, and it's such a lie because we stop enjoying the process. We stop enjoying the moments and we don't take risks because we get so laser focused on what success looks like and we have to hit those numbers and those things. And I just want to dare you to take a risk. Let your win of the week be, I took a risk. Whether it falls flat, I've taken a lot of risks in my life and a lot of them have actually failed quite poorly. But I look at them now and those risks, I can find a lot of, I can be quite proud of. When I think I was about 23, 24, I had left one job and while I was in between jobs, I was working for my dad and I was trying to be like a social media manager and he has like his own business and different things like that. And so I was trying to really build like a portfolio to become like a social media manager and different things like that. And all of the sudden, and it never took off. It really fell flat. But that was something where I look back on and I'm like, you know what? I'm really proud of myself. I took that risk. I did those things. And the thing is, you might take a couple of risks and they might fall flat. I've taken some risks and they've fallen flat for me. And then there's been other times where it also comes down to an odds game too, where at some point in time when you take a risk, it is going to work out for you. And so that's where it's one of those things in your 20s. Don't stop dreaming. Don't stop shooting for the stars. Your 20s are the best time to try things. Build skills, because all of a sudden, all the people that didn't build skills in their 20s and they just worked the same job over and over and over. And it's almost like they never valued the opportunity to try new things. It's almost like they got left behind somewhere. And so when you start to value purpose and you start to value experiences and those different things like that, it propels you into a different realm. And what's been really unique is getting to sit around with C-suite executives and have dinner with them and to talk about them, is a lot of them have really unique experiences, whether they have really unique hobbies, whether they're very involved with their family and just different things like that. And as I would talk to them and share different experiences, and it's so unique because when you find certain people, there was one individual I had actually met, and he was the type where he would say, I haven't had enough adversity in my life, so he went out and created his own adversity. And that was something where I think it's really beneficial that when you find is, if you want to have character and you want to build something that's never been built before and you want to achieve something that's never been achieved before, a lot of times you have to face adversity. And adversity is not that bad. It's not that bad. Don't get me wrong. Adversity is hard and it can be bad, but also adversity, it's like the saying, iron sharpens iron. You don't become sharp and you don't become great until you face some type of adversity. So with all of this being said, I actually have a quote that I pulled that I think is going to be really great. And I really want to start incorporating quotes into each and every one of these shows. And so this quote goes, messiness and uncertainty and confusion and mistakes are all part of making the most of your 20s. You don't need to have it figured out. You don't need to be there already. You're not behind. Nothing's gone wrong. In fact, everything has gone so wonderfully right. You are here. You are living. Sam Brown at Smart 20s. I read that quote and I thought it was really fantastic. I think it really sums up what your 20s are. There's messiness, there's uncertainty, there's confusion, there's mistakes. And what's really cool is when you get to a point in your life and you can look back on the messiness and you can look back at the uncertainty and the confusion. And there's something beautiful about, as you get older, finding grace for yourself. Where the first time I'd started working at a corporate company and different things like that, and going to meetings that were like offsites and different things like that, and you get nervous, and the first time you have presentations and you're showing up and you're thinking about things that you would never think about if once you've had more experience, and things like what am I wearing? How am I presented? Am I talking correctly? And the first time you experience those things, and it's so much uncertainty, so much unknown. And then the funny thing is, one day you stop thinking about those things and you just show up to the meetings and you don't think twice about really what are people thinking of you, because you've conquered the unknown. And so that's the beautiful thing about that particular quote, and even just looking at it and seeing it and just knowing that nothing's gone wrong. In fact, everything has gone so wonderfully right. So this is the thing. Your 20s, they suck. They might be hard. But the beautiful thing is, embrace it. Embrace the hard. Embrace that life might not go, or the expectations that you had might not be exactly what it is. But the thing is, if you can stop and embrace and actually kind of celebrate where you are right now, you're going to find a lot of good out of it. And the thing is, anytime I've ever focused on the good things in my life, things actually turned out a lot better. Whenever I got stuck in comparison, gosh, that was a losing game. And a lot of times, every time I got lost in comparison more than the last time, it's almost becomes like quicksand where you can't even get out. The more that you try and you wiggle your way out, and you can't. So try to hold on to the fact that it's like, yeah, your 20s might be rough, but it's almost like one of those things. It can only go up from here. So try whatever that thing is that you've wanted to try, but you've been too scared to do it. Go for it. Shoot for the moon. It's one of those things that, one of the things I've always told myself is, what's the worst thing that could happen? Worst thing that happens is I look crazy. Worst thing that happens is people don't like it. You know, it's one of those things, if you can embrace that some people are just going to think you're weird, then the world's your oyster, you know? So the win for this week, and this is another segment that I want to bring into the show, is acknowledging any kind of win that you've had, whether big or small or whatever the case may be. And so for the win of this week it's our very first episode. It's the beautiful starting chapter to a whole new adventure. And as we move into other episodes throughout the season, we'll hit more on things like firsts, whether it's your first job and so on and so forth. Other episodes are going to include getting deeper into the topic of having this idea of like a dictionary of words for yourself, how success looks one way versus someone else, just like dreams has a whole different meaning for other people versus your own, and just all those different things and how they correlate. So really looking forward to having more of these conversations with you, really looking forward to seeing how maybe you guys are stacking up with your wins of the day. So, and I just want to take another quick second to stop and say thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching, however you are consuming this podcast. The fact that you have taken time out of your day to put headphones on or turn your stereo up or whatever, however you consume this, I just want to say thank you. It has been a great privilege to get to talk to you. Looking forward to seeing you next week. So I'll see you soon. Bye.